Warhaven is a brand new, free-to-play, third-person, medieval fantasy PvP brawler that has been released on Steam Early Access on September 21st. The medieval fighting game genre is rather uneventful at the moment, and fans of games like For Honor, Chivalry 2 and Mordhau are desperate for something new and fresh. So without any further ado, let's find out if Warhaven could be the next big thing in the genre. Warhaven features 12 vs 12 as well as 6 vs 6 player battles, whereas up on early access release there are 5 different game modes and 5 different maps in the game. The 12 vs 12 player game modes are Dominion, a game mode where each team fights to control footholds, Onslaught, a mode where players push the frontline into enemy territory by controlling contested points, and Arms Race, a game mode where teams have to escort a war machine into enemy territory and destroy the enemy team's totems on the way. For 6 vs 6 player battles, there is standard team deathmatch and Reclamation, basically a capture the flag game mode, where both teams fight to capture divine stones that spawn in the middle of the map and transport them to an allied foothold. Releasing the game with 5 maps only is definitely a bit on the lower side, but they made it so that one map can host different game modes. So currently there are 13 different possible map/game mode combinations, which I think should be fine in terms of variety for now. The maps are pretty well designed. In 12 vs 12 modes, for example, there are support points that a team can control, like big cannons or closer respawn points. This gives room for tactical considerations, and you have to assess, is it better to fight for the cannon spot or any other place that makes it easier to hold or advance the main objective, or is it more effective to focus on the main objective directly? Most melee games from the past lack these tactical elements almost completely. However, nearly all of the most successful multiplayer games have some sort of tactical elements to them, and I hope the melee genre can learn from that and implement more strategy elements into their games. To push this strategic element even more, in Warhaven each team is split into squads of 3 players. Squad members can easily communicate with each other, they can resurrect each other, you can respawn next to them, and there are certain perks in the game that make your character a bit stronger if you're next to a squad member. I think the whole squad member mechanic sounds better in theory than it works out in practice though. Maybe you could get more out of it with pre-made parties, but with randoms, I found that there is rarely any effort to stick together and exploit the squad mechanics. Anyways, besides these casual modes, Warhaven will also feature a ranked mode somewhere in the near future. When or what exactly this ranked mode will look like, that we don't know yet, but I think a 5v5 or 6v6 team objective mode would be the best fit for that. Warhaven features a class system, with currently 6 different classes to choose from. Classes have different stats, weapons and skills, and play quite differently from each other. First of all, there is Blade, your cookie-cutter knight with a greatsword. Spike is an offensive character with a spear that has good range and high damage. Then there is Warhammer, a big guy with a big scary hammer. Guardian is the tank/frontline class in Warhaven and uses a big shield and a one-handed mace. Then we have Hush, another mobile offensive character with a blade. And lastly, Smoke, a slippery support character with a staff that can heal allies. Besides those 6 base classes, there are also 4 Immortals. Immortals are special units that are much stronger than regular classes, and once per game you can transform into one of them. There is Martyr, an immortal that excels at melee combat, Darkgale, an immortal on a fast warhorse with a lance, Raven, a magician who can bombard enemies from a distance, and Hoyt, a support character that has crowd control, shields and can resurrect from a distance. I think the idea with the Immortals is actually pretty neat and gives the gameplay a nice touch. During the beta playtests, there was actually an Immortal meter that filled up by dealing damage to enemies, and every time it was full you could transform. That combined with more players per team on the battlefield made for absolute chaos, where you were constantly facing 2 or 3 Immortals. I think the game is in a much better spot now with limited transformations. Visually, Warhaven looks pretty good. The art style is kinda similar to For Honor, a game which is like 6 years old by now, but still holds up well in terms of visuals, I think. The art direction is a bit all over the place, with medieval weapons, tanks and dragons in the same setting. The animation work is also pretty solid, both for out of combat and combat animations. Attacks and skills look good and the hit detection feels crisp. The hit sounds and the fact that enemies turn into stone and splatter when they die also contribute to satisfying strikes. Warhaven runs pretty well and I didn't encounter any game-breaking bugs or glitches. The game supports FSR2, DLSS and XESS and is also fully compatible and verified for the Steam Deck. As a PvP melee brawler, having a good and satisfying combat system is crucial and makes or breaks the game. If I had to describe Warhaven combat in a few words, I would say it's somewhere in between hack and slash and medieval slasher. The game has free-flowing combat, so no lock-on system like For Honor. I'm actually a bit confused that so many people compare this game to For Honor, as these two games have basically nothing in common when it comes to melee combat. While having free-flowing combat, Warhaven, however, does not have directional attack inputs, nor does it have drags or feints. Alright, so how the hell do you hit someone then if there are no drags and feints, you might ask? Well, head-on encounters in Warhaven boil down to a rock-paper-scissors system, which goes as follows. Blocking beats attacking, attacking beats guard breaking, and guard breaking beats blocking. Now there's obviously a bit more to it and some exceptions to that. Spike, for example, doesn't have a guard break from neutral, but instead has an unblockable attack, so attack beats block in that case. Furthermore, like in most team-based melee games, the vast majority of damage is dealt by hitting preoccupied people in the back, so that hasn't really changed for this game. The combat is pretty arcadey and casual, even a bit more casual than Chivalry 2. Still, it has some depth to it, more than I initially expected. There is a riposte mechanic that prevents players from spamming attacks. There is also a mechanic that prevents players from holding their block forever. There are perfect blocks that preserve stamina and stagger the enemy. There are combos, dodges, a headshot damage multiplier, unblockable attacks, and other mechanics that deepen the rock-paper-scissors system I mentioned. Something that I find rather annoying is how easy it is to run away from anything. I don't think there is any form of chase mechanic in this game. And what makes it even worse is that there is almost no forward lunge during attacks. So it is really hard to catch someone that runs away from you. There are also no 1vx mechanics in Warhaven, so if you're ever up against two players at once, and those two are not terrible, then you either run away or you are most likely dead. Warhaven has lots of systems and content in place that have nothing to do with the actual gameplay itself. There are daily quests, weekly quests, event quests, login rewards, a new recruit event, a recruitment event, world pass battles, card collections, league challenges, multi-win challenges, and more. On that front, with all these collectibles and minigames, it really feels like a mobile game. The game currently has two main forms of progression. Firstly, there is the grind for cosmetics. Some cosmetics can be unlocked by playing the game. Most of the good-looking ones need to be bought, however, with real money. There is also a battle pass for cosmetic items that sells for $10, which is a fair price for a free-to-play game in my opinion. Besides that, there is the grind for unlocking perks that give different bonuses to your character. I don't really like permanent stat upgrades in round-based PvP games. I think everyone should be on even footing in these games. Now, the upgrades are not super big, so it's not straight up stat gains to a point where you can't win against someone that has better perks. But still, I wished these were more of a side grade than an upgrade, and the game would let you start with some default perks. As already mentioned, in the future there will also be ranked progression, so players can grind to climb the ranked ladder. So, is this game worth playing? Well, it obviously depends on what you're looking for. For many hardcore medieval slasher fans, Warhaven is probably a bit too casual and arcadey to enjoy long term. If you're looking for a casual melee game, however, without drags and feints, then this might be right up your alley. From a technical standpoint, the game is pretty good, I must say. It's also free to play with currently zero pay-to-win mechanics in place. So yeah, all in all, a pretty good game for what it is, I would say. And because people might ask, I just want to make clear that this video is not sponsored and the opinions here are 100% my own. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think about Warhaven. Does it look good to you? Will you check it out? If you enjoyed watching, then please leave a like and consider subscribing for future medieval slasher videos. As always, thank you all for watching and see you soon.